So I'm Johnny Christmas, this is Sam Crowther, we're from Casada. If you couldn't figure that out, it's pretty obvious. Let's do some audience OSINT. Who here works for the red team in some capacity? Awesome. About average. Who's blue team? Who's something completely different? Very cool. I always like doing the penetration testing, offensive security talks, and seeing how many blue teamers show up. This is amazing because in reality, you're the guys that this is for. We work for a company that is able to detect the presence of automation client side and determine if automation is being used to leverage an HTTP-based attack against your web applications. This is the predominant method of attack on the internet. Pretty much everything is automated. Even if it's a penetration tester or human attacker, they're still using automation toolkits of some sort to leverage these attacks because holy crap, typing in individual credit card numbers is super boring. And we built something really cool that's able to detect and defend against that on the very first HTTP request. And I'm not going to make this a sales pitch because we're going to be talking about how to bypass WAFs. So super quick, can you everyone see this okay? Yeah, I was worried about that. They can't do anything about the lighting on here, unfortunately. However, I will have the entire slide deck up, which is super nutrient rich on my GitHub. I have links at the end. You guys can try and zoom in, take pictures, do what you can about this. In the meantime, we're going to really discuss every bullet point that's up here. So you can't see the slides. It means you get to take some notes because we're adults, I've been told. Intro slide for me. I'm Johnny Christmas. Who doesn't know me? Wow, that's 3 hands. That's weird. Usually it's like half the room. So I've done pretty much everything there is to do, from network engineer to systems engineer, InfoSec engineer, InfoSec consultant. I spent many years as a penetration tester. And then I spent the last year or so in the industrial space as an ICS researcher, which was super cool and fun. Every time I switch jobs, I try to switch careers and do something I'd never done before. So now I'm working in the vendor space because Sam and Casada had something really freaking cool that I wanted to be a part of. So check this out. There's some links on the side if you want to be able to find me. Again, pictures are totally cool. I do highly recommend you grab some pictures of these slides because there's a lot of information in them, and your phone might be able to see it easier than you can. So Sam, you want to give a brief rundown?
Yeah, no, my name's Sam. I grew up a few miles south of the border.
Like the Singapore border.
One of them. I got started in my career, fortunate enough to work with one of the groups that do some fun problems for government. And then...
How many letters did that group have?
I think there was 3.
3-ish, around 3?
Yeah, maybe, allegedly. That's what they told me. After that, I was a security engineer and a red teamer for one of the big investment banks back in Australia, where I cried every single time I did a test because it was also miserable. And then I left to start Casada.
So, all that aside, let's talk about what WAFs are in a modern context, because the concept of WAF has been around since, I want to say, the early 90s. I was dealing with WAFs as an armchair hacker, 94, 95. They've been around as long as computers have had public IP addresses, more or less. A lot of us are really familiar with this kind of basic WAF. It's usually that box that you have on-prem. It's effectively using the same methodology that it has always been using since the 90s, which is it does inspection of your post body content, and it looks for suspicious looking strings of information to say, all right, is this possibly SQLI? Something like that, and then it just alerts you. Mostly all it can do is just do some IP blacklisting at absolute best, or it just lets you know, and then all you do is you go and blacklist the IPs at your firewall, which we all know is the most irritating thing to have to do because it's not going to do anything. It's going to stop them. They're going to come back from somewhere else. But that's what your incident response process says you should do, and that's what you got to do. And then who here spends most of their day just playing IP address whack-a-mole? Just this, right? And it's
a fun game.
Yeah, it's a great game. Got me this far, I guess. I may be the all-time high scorer. It's stupid and it doesn't work, and we'll get into why later. It can sometimes do very basic behavioral analysis, and that's, you're talking frequency analysis. You're talking, hey, we've seen this IP address make 5 posts in the last 3 seconds, that's probably something automated, that's probably an attack. You should probably do something about it. And that's the best you're gonna get out of this, is just guessing based on that. It'll do some kind of vague fingerprinting based on like user agent and HTTP header order and content, and say like, oh, we know this is the same person because the user agent's the same. Or it's not the same person because the user agent changed. So there's no way it could be the same person, right?
But you can't fake user agents?
No, is that? Maybe we'll talk about that later. we'll dive into that weird fuzzy realm of faking HTTP header data later. It gets crazy, kids. And overall, they're extremely trivial to bypass in most cases because you can just go low and slow and head right in. You can do plenty of really cool obfuscation of your post data to bypass the string inspection that the WAFs are doing. One of my favorite examples is we use SQL map. Great, super simple, excellent SQL attack tool. Who's used the WAF bypass mechanism within SQL map? Who's seen this? Check it out. Just do it for no reason. It's a quick switch. Next time you run an SQL map, just turn on the WAF obfuscation, or the WAF bypass obfuscation. I know it's really hard to tell here. I don't know if this helps. No, that's even worse. Is this the coolest thing or what? So basically, it adds in all kinds of uninterpreted data in the strings that the WAF looks at and goes, nope, that doesn't look like SQL to me. It's probably fine. Go ahead, come on in. So on-prem basic WAFs aren't really useful anymore. They're just an annoyance that suck up your day.
But don't they mean on compliant and secure?
Yes. Done. Let's get out of here. You want to talk a little about the more sophisticated WAFs we've been seeing?
Yeah, so there was a big surgence of like cloud-based WAFs, right? When we realized the on-prem one sucks and it's not scalable. A few companies decided, all right, let's put this in the cloud, because that's how we solve every single problem these days.
Do you want to list a few that you know of? No? Okay.
Because I may shit on them later.
Yeah, wait, we don't.
So it's mostly reverse proxy. Sometimes, they're a bit more sophisticated. They'll check that you can set HTTP headers, because again, only browsers can responsively set cookies and other headers that they're challenged for. And they'll create more sophisticated fingerprints on particularly the HTTP layer. So looking at, right, well, this has content type, accept user agent, and then whatever header. Let's create a fingerprint on that and see if we can track them around. Again, you're trying to track someone based on something that can be changed with a single line of code. Yeah, they're creating fingerprinting based on things that are really easily spoofed and easily rotated with every single request, or could easily come from a trillion different IPs. You may see this kind of WAF built into maybe the CDN that you have already. They'll have kind of their whatever they call a WAF, and you turn it on, and it's like, oh, now I have a WAF, I guess. And fun fact, they're usually almost all mod security.
What's that?
Almost all of the cloud WAFs are actually mod security with a few custom rules.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah. And a few extra rules and a few extra line items on your bill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but it's just mod security. So this is predominantly where we're going to be talking about more sophisticated WAFs here. Right. Sophisticated. But yeah, either or, they're both pretty much useless these days for the reasons that we mentioned. They rely on information willingly provided by the client, which we should always assume is malicious, and then they trust it, and they go, no, this looks fine to me, problem must be somewhere else. So let's talk about how to bypass these as a penetration tester or something else. Someone who's testing your defenses for one reason or another. We're not going to ask you guys why you're doing this, but you're all here because you're super interested in that. Here's the bare minimums you need. This is something you should be doing every single time against every single external target that you have, regardless of your knowledge of what's going on there. This is when you're writing your curl scripts. This is when you're writing your Python request scripts, something like this. This is what you just need to always do. And I'll go through some examples, but it might be hard to see. We'll find out. So first off, who here has the business that totally lets them block residential IPs? Don't be shy. It's literally nobody, right? Nobody's business is going to let them block residential IPs. Why? Because the potential for that being a paying customer is super high. So what should we be doing if we're trying to break into somewhere? Use residential IPs. Well, how do we get residential IPs? What's a residential IP cost like for you on what Comcast? What does Comcast want now?
$60.
$60 per IP?
Well,
Per month, that's insane. That's for like one Comcast, and then per public IP, I think you're gonna Comcast Business, which is like $100 a month minimum, and then you gotta pay
public
like
IPs, yeah.
$5 to $10 per, that's nuts. So then you only got one IP, two IPs. Well, something else you can do is just rent an entire IP block from any number of companies that are out there that let you lease those. Two of my favorites are Monkey Socks and Illuminati. Who wants to guess where Monkey Socks and Illuminati get their residential IPs from?
Free VPNs, maybe?
Free VPNs. It's not malware. What do we call that? It's potentially unwanted programs.
But it was in the terms of service. You agreed to it. You said yes.
Yeah.
Scroll and you check the checkbox.
This is super easy. Check the terms of service. Well, check the terms of service in everything you run, right? That's every Monday and Tuesday of my week is just reading the terms of service and whatever else I read. Monkey Socks and Illuminati have some really fun ones that say by using, first of all, I'll talk about Illuminati, which just says, who uses Hola VPN? Who knows Hola VPN? It's commonly used to get television shows in other countries, most often, especially if you're watching sports, cricket, football. Part of that terms of service says, hey, by using our free VPN, you agree to let us use your computer as effectively an exit node, just like a Tor exit node, so that random crap comes out of it. You're effectively allowing botnets to use you as one of their sources. You're hosting malware, you're hosting malicious activity from your home, and you have no idea because you're just watching a cricket match in India. Monkey Socks is super cool because they actually have an SDK that they sell. And that if you want to make a free app for, a free Android app, but you still want to monetize it, you throw the Monkey Socks SDK in, and what it does is it reuses existing connections in your phone to also do the same thing. We use as an exit node for these botnets. So this is how like so many Android phones are operating as these botnet IPs. Like how is it happening? My phone's not infected. The phones aren't infected. You agree to install this software, and the app is required to put this little blurb inside. That's easier to find if you check the Monkey Socks SDK. It actually provides the text really clearly. It says, please add this to your terms of service. And it's the most terrifying thing. It makes the hair on the back of your neck bristle. This is going on. So then so Illuminati is Hola VPN. So you go to them, you go to Monkey Socks, and you go, I need X number of residential IPs for this amount of time. You pay them a couple of bucks, and now you are loaded up with effectively unblacklistable IPs.
They'll actually go so far as to give you a refund if your IPs are blocked. And you can pay a bit more and get mobile residential networks as well. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, guaranteed valid IPs.
So this has created yet another subspace for sales, and that threat until companies are now adding as a line item, they'll give you like up-to-date Hola VPN IP address lists.
That's great. So
If you look at a request that comes through the Hola VPN,
Yeah.
there is literally an X-Hola header added.
So
It's very difficult to detect.
if you want to block the Hola VPN IPs, you can look for that X-Hola VPN header, but you're still at risk of running into the business because also Hola VPN is used for legitimate purposes.
Very legitimate.
You are at risk of blocking users, so have fun fighting that fight. So now we have effectively an infinite number of unblockable IPs. We've defeated the only line of defense pretty much everyone in this room said they have against this is the IP whack-a-mole. You're done. Okay, next.
Particularly Illuminati is super easy to like plug into almost any app that you build. Like even Burp, I think someone's written a Java plugin for Burp, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's the best. There's JavaScript libraries, there's Python libraries for Illuminati. Don't worry about it. I'm not even going to demo the code. It's super simple. And also, we don't have that much time. After that, make sure you're rotating your user agent. This is a thing you can do. Who'd have thought? So, like, everyone spoofed their user agent, right? There's like an infinite number of plugins for every single browser out there that lets you spoof your user agent. Who knows how many valid user agents there are known to be out there? Me neither. It's in the thousands. I compiled a list. It's on my GitHub. So if you need a list of all user agents in a flat text format, it's on my GitHub. And I'll show you what that is later because I use it. Rotate that. So much WAF-based blacklisting And whitelisting operates just based on user agent, or user agent and one other easily spoofable thing. So you can hide yourself from being detected as like the same person, so you're dodging behavioral analysis by every time you send a new request, it's from a new IP with a new user agent header, nothing catches it. Or if everything you're doing is getting blocked, you may be attacking a very locked down edge device that may have user agent whitelisting set up, where they're expecting only, say, some kind of automated process that they've built to connect, which has a custom user agent or uses some kind of very specific user agent. You can roll through 4,000 user agents until you find the ones that are allowed in, and then go from there. So that's really cool too. What else?
Typically, monitoring software is a good place to start with that. Like
Oh yeah, like
Uptime Robot or whatever.
yeah, any kind of like heartbeat or uptime monitoring software, spoof those user agents, because everyone whitelists those, because well, we need that to get in to make sure our website's up. Well, now you're telling them that that's who I am, and they just blindly trust this crap. And like I said, use it for whitelist buzzing as well. And again, rotate all of this every time you make a request, if it's possible for what you're doing. Sometimes that'll break a few things, but definitely give it a try. Also, this is something I see a lot of people miss. Use cookies, and that's a wide recommendation. Authorized sessions, so sessions you can auth to and then get your session cookie from that, often has a lot more lenient behavioral analytics going on behind it. You can often get away with a lot more requests per IP or this and that if you have a valid authenticated cookie going on there. And usually it's as easy as just creating a fake account on whatever the site is and then grabbing the cookie and rolling. Sometimes there are certain session cookies that are absolutely required or you're not getting anything, so that's of course critical. But also watch out for these sneaky, sophisticated WAF cookies that a few vendors use where they'll inject them into the responses and then your browser will start using them regularly, and that actually helps them track your behavior. So even if you're rotating everything else, the fact that you keep sending back this cookie with every single request lets them know, hey, this is still the same person, and then it starts racking up your analytics totals, and then you're going to get busted. So that takes a little inspection and eyeballing of the traffic that you have going back and forth. But that's very much one of the options that some of the apps use, and sometimes it is as simple as just making sure you don't provide that cookie when you send the next request in. Like certain cloud-based WAF providers, it just, if that cookie's not there, it assumes you're new. But then again, some are required. So this is where it takes a little bit of playing around. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a bit, but you can couple this with something like a Phantom.js or a like Headless Chrome and Puppeteer, where you can load the page, pull the cookies out, and then shove them straight into another tool.
Yeah, well, we'll get that later on. So this is all the basic stuff. This is what you should at least be doing, and this is in any code you're writing. This is your little JavaScript, your curl, your Python, whatever. At the very least, do this, and this is going to bypass what percentage of these sophisticated WAFs?
Basically all of them.
Basically all of them. It's ridiculous. This is something I only discovered recently, and it's just it's ridiculous. How many people don't try this? How many attacks out there, human and bot, are just not employing these tactics that are super easy to do, and then they go, I guess they have defenses that we can't get past, and they just go away.
We saw someone try to brute force credentials on a website, which they should have probably put some effort into, and they literally used Python as the user agent header.
Yeah, just Python, which is the default UA for Python request library. So what I will do for you here, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but I'm going to try and walk through it anyway. I have, was anyone at Hackfest Canada last year? Probably not, that's it, right. So I was at Hackfest Canada last November, and how do we get over to this screen? Computers, guys. There we go. Oh, that's cool. I know this is tough, but I'll just, for the sake of the recording, it'll look really good on the video. Oh, it doesn't work like that. Okay, so I've got, up in my GitHub there, is a Python script I wrote to scrape the Venmo public feed. Who remembers the whole Venmo debacle that happened last summer? Where everyone was like, oh my God, the feed is public. Everyone can see what I'm spending money on and who I'm sending money to. And Venmo was like, yeah, it's fun. Right, fun. And all the media got on them and Venmo was like, yeah. If the users want us to stop it, we'll stop it, and then they didn't anyway. So I wrote a tool that will scrape that public feed, but Venmo has a lot of controls going on to prevent you from doing that because that. So if you check out my GitHub, look into the Venmo, I call it Venmore, the API scraper, and in there you'll see not only I wrote a system here up top that goes in and authenticates against their login page, and actually exploits something I found where they will issue an authenticated session token prior to a new account being confirmed. So effectively, you can just flood it with new account creation all day, and it will give you valid session tokens, even if you don't go into your email and confirm it, because you flood it with just fake email addresses and fake information. You do need a phone number that hasn't been used already. You can go look at my Hackfest candidate talk that really goes through this, but I ended up accidentally blacklisting like just thousands of people's phone numbers. So if you try to register for Venmo on your phone, and it was like, this number's already in use, apologies. I will Venmo you $1. Hit me up. But then it gives you a valid auth cookie, and then you use that, and I found that let me use way more requests to the API per IP address versus not having that. So it makes you have to rotate those IPs less, which is super handy. And then further down, can you guys see this at all, or is this a total waste of time? Okay, well, so anyway, further way down, there's another function in there that shows you, that rotates all the user agent headers, and you can go ahead and grab that from my code and plug that into whatever you have. You can grab most of this and plug that into whatever you have, and it's going to be useful. And I even have the full list of like 5,000 some user agents inside that GitHub, so you can just literally grab this block of code, and now that's your user agent switcher and rotator. I did that for you. So that's enough of the super boring code demo that no one can see. Let's go back to the talk. I wonder what's next. Is this useful? Are you guys digging this?
Yeah.
Are you guys surprised at how easy this is and upset? No, I like the no. Like,
Yeah, having worked in the space now.
Who already has ideas of what they're going to use this for? I think nobody wants to put a hand up. That's a good idea. All right, so like that's all your basic stuff. That's going to get you past. Well, I guess we said literally everything out there.
Basically everything.
But anyway, let's talk about some advanced stuff you can do in 2020 when that stuff no longer works, I guess.
I thought it took vendors 6 years to patch problems.
Well, then the new vendors come in and I don't know, what do they say? They disrupt. So when someone disrupts this industry, like someone we know, who has a new idea of how to defend against these attacks, maybe we'll talk about them later. I wish you could see this. This is the man who busted into the convenience store with a bunch of ostriches and a luchador costume. It's totally unexpected. How do you defend against that? Even if you are armed and ready for someone to break in, when a luchador busts in with a bunch of ostriches, you're not ready. Everyone just stands, look at this poor guy. Yeah, this is nuts. So, yeah. So the trick here is to be both the luchador and the ostriches. Write that down. Come at them with everything that was not expected. It's a cool transition. So, say you're up against something that you just can't get around, you can't figure out how it's blocking you. This is going to be basically your attack path. This is going to be the hard and slow path, but it's going to be what's necessary at this point, and this is super information dense. What you're looking at mostly here is your general edge enumeration process. Who are the pen testers in here? Cool, it gets more every year, and that's neat. So this is a cool tactic if you're not familiar with all of these. This is how to figure out what's going on the client's edge. And anyone who's running Blue Team, you just need inventory. This is also something you should be doing instead of just trusting what IT gives you as a list of servers they have listening to the internet. You're going to want to find the ASNs that the target owns, and you can usually do that by 2 to 3 really quick ARIN lookups. Who knows ARIN? This should be everybody. So ARIN is the American Registry of Internet Numbers. That keeps track of who owns what IP addresses, mostly. So it's a great place to look, for Americans at least. You find domains owned by the target, and then you plug them back into ARIN again, and you just compile all these IP blocks that they have. Then you scan all those IP blocks, and look at everything that's out there. And then you enumerate everything that's up that has a web server listing, because we're talking about HTTP here, we're talking about layer 7 WAFs. And then you go from there. I wrote a tool at a couple of companies ago called ScanCannon. Again, ScanCannon is up on my GitHub, and I built it to do most of this enumeration when you're dealing with massive global entities. So it's up there, and you can use that, and it does the area lookups, and it gives you a whole ton of flat files. It says, here's all the web servers. And you can take that list of web servers, and you can plug it into some automation in your browser to load all those pages, and then what you're going to do is you're going to look for the forms. You're going to look for whatever you're trying to exploit. Is it a login portal? Is it a customer loyalty program portal? Is it something where you have a text box where you just want to flood a bunch of information into? That aside, you're going to go through DNS as well. And this is pretty much the same thing, but then you've got your reverse lookup on the IPs that you discover that are listening. You find IPs that are up in those error blocks, do reverse IPs to find domains or subdomains that were registered to those, and start doing this process again against those. See where those ended up. And then also look at the nomenclature used in these. Can you guess other server names that this company might use based on the ones you're already looking at? Try inferring a lot of this stuff. Look at DNS history, try to do DNS zone transfers. Who knows what a zone transfer is? This is super common. You wouldn't believe how many public DNS servers are susceptible to a zone transfer, which effectively allows you to dump every registered name for every IP address that they have. You just ask for it and it goes, yeah, here you go. And so there you go. And then you can even start doing your DNS name buzzing. There's no end of tools out there that allow you to do that, and that's just literally punching, throwing everything at a DNS server and seeing what it responds to. The purpose of this is we're trying to find the actual edge of this company, not the reported edge. You're trying to find the origin servers, because you're going to try to attack those directly instead of having your traffic forced through the WAF. So what you're doing is you've got the super complicated WAF that's just stopping every attempt you have. So go around it. Figure out how to route your traffic around it by doing this. If you can find an origin, and if you can get a packet to that origin, you beat the WAF. It's useless, it's out of the picture, you're talking right to the origin. And that's real common too, because a lot of people don't put up proper firewall rules in front of those origins. They say, oh, we got a WAF protecting this web server now, and all the traffic goes through there, and it stops all the bots. But they didn't think to make sure only that WAF can talk to the origin. So I could just go to the origin. Done. Sorry, that was a ton of info. You want to grab this one?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll let you drink some water.
Yeah.
Round robining the edge nodes is super useful when some of your attacks are getting through, but after maybe 10 or 15 requests, they stop. When you build a distributed system, it's very, very difficult, if it literally is a global system, to actually sync every single edge node from just even something as simple as how many requests each IP is made. So if you can map out all the edge nodes for a given cloud-based solution and smash them sequentially as soon as one gets blocked, you may or may not find that you will get more requests through than you initially thought you should. And some of these may be on a 15-minute rotation, and you may be able to do it again every 15 minutes.
Yeah, so it's not actual round robin where you're sending one request per node, per WAF node that you found each time. You're sending all of them to one, and then once that starts blocking, then you send it to the next, because of that delay in syncing all of the block information between the three of them. And that's usually a 15-minute, well, for some vendors we found, it's a 15-minute delay. That sync happens every 15 minutes. So you can flood the first WAF node, get blocked, just go to the next one who has no idea that same vendor has blocked you elsewhere, because they only sync every 15 minutes. And then the sync takes time because it's often a massive list.
And then you just need to pay one additional cent for your new IP, and you do it all again. On the DNS origin side of things as well, that's probably one of the best techniques. If you could use DNS history checks and figure out what the origin server may be. There may be other ways to do it if you do some Googling, but yes, it's very useful, because it doesn't matter how good your WAF is if you can just access that server directly.
Talking about URL path rules themselves, CDNs, who manages a CDN or has managed a CDN in the past? You're familiar with the CDN setup? Not many people. Cool, we'll go through it real quick. CDNs are a content distribution.
One of them.
So they're basically used to take the load off your origin servers. They cache a whole bunch of stuff, and it's your images and videos and crap that you don't want to have to constantly serve as these high bandwidth items that also don't change that often on your website. So your traffic will hit the CDN first, and the CDN will give them all the images and crap that they're looking for, and then it will send the rest of the requests that it can't fulfill back to your origin. Who knows what I mean by origin, by the way? So origin means the web servers. The web's the actual web server running on your edge that serves, when you update the website, that's the thing that gets updated.
Yeah, a lot of these CDNs have gotten really, really sophisticated, and people have started putting their WAFs at that same layer. One of the, I guess not problems, but common implementation problems, which is something you should definitely check for, is different path rules may be hitting different origin servers or be treated slightly differently, and more often than not, they'll actually have different configurations from a security and blocking perspective. So if you can test maybe /login, it may be treated completely differently to /register, for example, if they're different backend apps.
Yeah, what he's saying is there's rules per URL path in these CDNs, and oftentimes those are implemented to troubleshoot an issue. Like you have a web application, you find that when the requests were coming through the CDN, it wasn't fulfilling them properly, so you quickly whitelisted it in your CDN/WAF so that it would just work and you weren't stopping any customers, and you'll get to that later. Or the app team is currently trying to figure out what the problem is, and in the meantime, we've whitelisted all of that. And so you can use that to find these actual whitelisted URL paths. And so you can fuzz through individual URL paths and find that, oh wait, my traffic gets through if I hit this. Look for other portals or other pages or paths within that same domain that may be hosting something else you can use for your goals. So say you're trying to find a login that you want to brute force. Look for other portals on that domain that may have these whitelisted path rules going on. So you might be getting blocked at one, and then you find something else, and it's authentic to the same database, so that's great. And then also, it's been whitelisted for whatever reason. Maybe it's a super old portal that was created to support your IE6 users, which are still out there. You come across this and it's bananas. And long story short, for whatever reason, you had to whitelist that. So like fuzzing URL paths is super important here. Don't give up just because you're getting blocked right out of the gate. Again, some may be accidental or intentionally unprotected. We've all accidentally made whitelisting rules, right? We've all accidentally made blacklisting rules that let way too many people in or stop too many people from getting in. We've all done it. It happens a lot. It's out there. Assume it's out there. Go find it.
The other side of it as well is most of the time, at least in organizations I've been a part of, is whenever there's a new code push, the WAF will have to go back into learning mode because there may be new data, or new fields getting sent. If you can figure out when your organization's doing these pushes, that could be a good spot to time your test.
Because then all the behavioral analytics are set back to 0 and you can start again. Yeah, fun stuff. And then finally, try to find if you're trying to, this is mostly for scraping data, but also can often be used for authentication sometimes, or pretty much anything. If there's an API that lets you do what you want to do, try hitting the API instead. Write something that interacts directly with that API. Oftentimes, you'll find that API is not protected. The full website, the web application will be protected, and then the API is just completely open facing the internet because they don't expect you to connect to it, because only the mobile app is supposed to protect it. Only the registered official mobile app is supposed to connect to this API, so we don't have to protect it.
There's a lot of WAFs that can't even filter API traffic, they can't. But JSON, what? It's meant to be application encoded.
JSON,
Yes.
he's the guy who wrote the app, so it's fine. Let JSON in, it's great. Yeah, so look for the API, and like Sam said, oftentimes if the client or the customer's WAF may not support API protection, done. Hit it, and that's it. And then you can hit that with curl at that point. You don't even have to rotate shit. Just go nuts. Yeah, I think I'm confused to test credentials. Did I write that? That's funny. Yeah, or do whatever you want. Because again, most mobile apps use an API that has to be hosted on the internet, and everyone's got mobile apps for stupid reasons now. Go find it. So we got about 10 minutes. Let's see, what do we got now? Find the origins, we talked about that. Here's some tips for finding the origins I got here. A lot of times these origins are obfuscated, and they can be obfuscated by using a hash or some kind of UUID. And so if you can at least find a few of these when you're doing these DNS lookups, these DNS zone transfers, whatever, and you're like, what are all these weird jumbles of characters? That's probably an intentionally obfuscated origin server. Try and figure out what the nomenclature is for that. Is it a type of hash that they generate? And you can then, start just generating hashes and brute forcing it at that point. You're kind of pushing your luck at this point, but it's something you can do.
Yeah. And if they're running on like a public cloud provider, what you can also do is just smash that public cloud provider's IP space for load balancers with the HTTP host header that you're expecting to send. And more often than not, eventually you'll get a hit.
And then this gets a little weird because it's contradictory. Like I said before, you can look for and block these. A lot of these WAFs will inject JavaScript into the responses that are fingerprinting mechanisms or something of that sort, and they require those to be run to prove that you're an actual human being inside a real browser instead of curl, instead of Python requests.
Basic example being like Cloudflare's ding, checking your browser.
Yeah, the little 3 bouncing balls, it takes like 8 years to complete. That's what that's doing. It's running some JavaScript in your browser to make sure your browser's a browser. If you can find that and just make it not run, sometimes depending on the vendor, it just lets you in. Just goes cool. So when you're writing your little thing, just say when you see this, just ignore it and move on. Or some of them require you to run that JavaScript. So try that as well. Try not blocking it, actually executing it, and then it'll often give you back a cookie for your session for completing that little task, and then you have to make sure that you provide that cookie that you were given with every session. So try that out. Or unleash the puppets. This looks way creepier when you can't see it. It's super big. This is terrifying. I'm gonna make you stare at this. Okay. So failing all that, your scripting isn't working, your JavaScript, your etc. You can't figure out what's going on. Something else you can do is actually just try automating an actual browser. There's a lot of cool stuff out there that does this. Zombie.js and Phantom.js are, Zombie.js I think is no longer supported. Phantom.js is, I think, not supported by the original creators anymore, but still super widely used. Tons of documentation out there, tons of Google information on how to use these out there. Headless Chrome is probably the most popular, I'd say.
Yeah, Headless Chrome with Puppeteer.
Yeah, Headless Chrome and Puppeteer. Learn to use these two. This is devastating because Headless Chrome is effectively Chrome, but headless. And then Puppeteer is an external utility that feeds Headless Chrome instructions on how to operate. And to most everything, getting the requests from Headless Chrome, it just appears it's a normal human being using Chrome. It does everything Chrome does. It processes the JavaScript. It responds properly. It accepts the cookies. It properly sends those cookies back when needed. It does anything the JavaScript tells it. It's super hard to detect that it's a Headless Chrome version instead of an actual Chrome version, unless you're us. So yeah, that's just try it. Who's used Headless Chrome before? Anyone? Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Isn't it devastating? Doesn't it just work? It's great stuff. Highly recommended. Scriptable as fuck. Executes on JavaScript. You can spin up effectively as many instances as you have system resources for. So you can have 100,000 separate browser instances coming from one IP. And that doesn't necessarily look like weird behaviors because when you think about, say, a college campus or a hotel chain or something, you're going to get hundreds of thousands of connections coming from a single IP. So it's not that big of a deal. And we definitely see that a lot. I mentioned Arachni up here. Who's ever used Arachni? That's neat because most people never hear this and I really like it. What Arachni is it's a web app vulnerability scanner that uses Phantom.js to do all this stuff, to bypass a lot of that stuff and look like a real human being. So you're able to get a lot more accurate data, vulnerability data out of a website you're scanning versus something that would have things in front of it to stop you from doing this. So definitely check out Arachni. You could just Google that up.
And again, for Puppeteer Headless Chrome, there's also plugins for Illuminati. So you could literally have an infinite residential proxy network.
Yeah, Illuminati has that business model down. Like they said, yeah, we'll give you, some places will give you public IP or residential IPs and say, they're here, here's an undocumented API you need to hit to get them, good luck. Or, I don't know, we'll just give you some numbers and they're yours and you have to figure out what to do at this point. So many people use Illuminati that there's been so many tools and libraries to just leverage it so that even like the most beginner of engineers can stick that into whatever script they're using. So check it out, but also they suck and I hate them. So like, now that you've got this like Phantom.js, Puppeteer, Headless Chrome nonsense attacking you that nothing that you currently own can detect and block, what can you do about this? What can they do about this? You can use, this is super minor sales pitch. We've created a product in Casada called Polyform that is so insanely good at fingerprinting the client-side environment on the very first HTTP request, that it can tell if any of these tools are being used, and also any automation tools that we're not aware of, something home-built. We can detect if something is being automated client-side on that first request, and that's really important to prevent against scrapers. If you guys work for a retail site or a listing site, like car listings, hotel listings, if you're selling Yeezys, that sort of thing, we can catch those price scrapers and stop them right out of the gate. And that's some secret sauce. And I'm not going to give you a sales pitch up here. If you want to talk about that, we can hang out later. I'll leave some business cards up here so you can grab them and talk. But that's what you have to do. You have to do something to fingerprint and find the automation that's running client side. You have to look for that. You can't trust the data provided in the HTTP headers. You can't trust anything willingly provided client side. And we've come up with a number of people who have built some really interesting in-house protections against this. But in the end, they come up short because we've spent years and literally millions of dollars figuring this problem out. But that's the end. The bottom line is don't trust the information you're willingly provided. Go get the information you need, and don't get it by asking. Get it by figuring it out client side, and that's the most clue I can give you on that. So if you want to find out what exactly the defenses you are all currently running in front of your websites are able to handle, what they're not able to handle, so that you can at least start focusing your efforts where they need to be. We're going to drop this today. This is super fun. We made this website called Beck or Bot. So Beck is a common female name in Australia, and I just love this name. It's Beck or Bot. And you can throw in any website you like down there, and on our end, it spins up a whole bunch of instances of various types of attacks, everything from your basic curl bot all the way up to sophisticated Puppeteer running Headless Chrome, and it'll spit back. And you guys can try this on your phone right now. The mobile site totally works. It's beckorbot.casada.io, beckorbot.casada.io, and I have, I'll show you guys how this works. We've been playing this for a few days here, just
It's way too satisfying to just run on random websites.
Yeah. So only run this on websites you have, oh, sorry, that wasn't the actual website. Here it is. Only run this on websites you have permission to run it on.
Is your Wi-Fi on there?
I don't know, man, I just work here. Is it Beckerbot?
So I could just use this as my personal DDoS tool?
Interesting. You can have a smash if you want.
What a question. Try that.
Yeah, give it a shot. Seriously,
that.
Try and build a bot to make it your DDoS tool.
And then once you're sufficiently furious, give me a call. So yeah, just hit scan there, and then it takes a few seconds. It spins up a whole bunch of crap and attacks the site, and then watch how simple this output is. Once it's done, there it is. So we see that heritage.org. Totally random site that I just guessed a word and put it in. If it's an actual site, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So we see here, it's susceptible to simple bots attacks. That's your curl, that's your Python, that's
literally with a curl user agent header.
Yeah, this is the most like, this is the we did nothing to disguise what we were doing attack. Susceptible. It did block fake Google bots. So there's tons of stuff out there that pretends to be SEO bots. Given that it failed everything else, I'm wondering if this site actually is just intentionally blocking SEO bots.
Maybe.
Yeah. And then it is susceptible to fake browser attack, which is like your Phantom.js, et cetera, and then susceptible to the Headless Chrome attack. So these people are hosed. They have almost no defenses against any kind of like automated scripting going on, but I don't know who they are, so that's fine. Don't worry about it. So this tool we have can protect against all these things. It's insanely effective. It's hilarious. I've estimated I spend about 28% of my day laughing at all of the bots that we stop, all of the automation. So we say bots, but it's really any kind of automated toolkits that are going on. So go ahead, we have our product up in front of Casada.io. Go ahead and try your luck at it. If you find a way around it, you win the prize. Hit me up to find out what the prize is. Might involve a black bag and a ride in a really cool car. But yeah, take a crack at it, and if you would like to have the production in front of your site, definitely hit us up. We're gonna throw some business cards up here, and we'll be out in the hall to talk later and answer any questions you guys got, because we're totally out of time. So I hope this was useful overall. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you at the rest of CypherCon.